Hi, this is Margaret Maloney, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. Open and honest discussions with wise and skillful teachers about their experiences with life, death, and Buddhism. If you wonder how others on the path have dealt with death and dying and grief, then be sure to listen in. Everybody has a story, a perspective, and a valuable lesson to share. Embrace death, live a full life, and learn how to love impermanence. Because as my dear father used to say, nobody gets out of this alive. Hello there, my friends, and welcome to the Death Dhamma podcast. So glad you are here. Today, we are going to talk about the 5 recollections. Recollections for today, tomorrow, and every day. Because in my work with interviewing my 12 wise teachers, now our 12 wise teachers, right? For the podcast and for the upcoming Sitting with Death, I learned that so many of our teachers draw upon the recollections. It came up with Mary Stankiewicz. It came up with Seth Segal, Diane Wild, and Venerable D. And of course, others, right? So we're going to talk about the 5 recollections. Before we do, a quick reminder to keep in touch. You can sign up and be part of the community at margaretmaloney.com. You can find the Death Dhamma Facebook page and keep tabs there. And of course, please keep joining me on the podcast because I am looking forward to the upcoming launch of Sitting with Death. And as part of that launch, providing my community members with an entire audio chapter of that book. Okay, so with this podcast and in Sitting with Death, Buddhist Insights to help you face your fears and live a peaceful life, there's an overarching goal, and that is to find a way to train for death, to become comfortable with death, so that you and your loved ones can benefit from your training and have a peaceful life leading to a peaceful death. And as part of your training plan, because I do recommend that you create a training plan, like others, I recommend the 5 recollections. Those 5 recollections, they combine a healthy recognition of impermanence with death awareness. And most of the Buddhist monks and nuns that I know chant these recollections every day. And the truth is that the recollections are not just for monks and nuns. You know, in the Pali Canon, so many of the suttas are the Buddha addressing his community of monks. And by the way, the term 500 is used often, and we don't really know, is it that there were always 500 monks precisely following him around, or is the translation of 500 indicative of like a really big group? But anyway, so frequently you'll find 500 monks. And it makes sense that most of the time the Buddha is addressing his monks because, again, he was traveling on foot, and he had his community of men who followed him. And at a certain point, there became nuns as well. But generally, you'll find the Buddha speaking to a community of monks. And that doesn't mean that we can't access and learn from his teachings. Clearly not, right? Because that is something we're doing. While many of his teachings do talk about him addressing the groups of monks, there are some teachings that are directed to lay people being those of us who are not monks or nuns. But there are definitely times where the Buddha created teachings that were directed specifically to lay people. One very popular example is the Siglovada Sutta, which is about the conduct for a lay person. Well, as you'll see very quickly here, because I'm going to read the recollections to you, and I'm going to read to you part of the sutta that they come from, you will see that the Buddha emphasizes that these are for everyone. These are for everyone. And I do recommend that you consider incorporating the 5 recollections into, again, I call it your training plan, into your practice. If you can do so on a daily basis, that's great. You're going to create the approach that serves you and supports you in balance with the rest of your life. But I encourage you to take these recollections and maybe place them where you can see them and remember them, and so that you will consistently meditate upon them and recite them. And then pay attention to these words and the impact that they have on you. Okay, so the Upajjhatthana Sutta, Subjects for Contemplation, from Angutta Nikara 5.57. And the sutta begins like this. There are these 5 facts that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. Which 5? So I'm going to stop right there. See? It's for everyone. And at the very beginning, we are told these 5 facts are for everyone. And then the sutta goes on to tell us what are these 5 facts, or these 5 recollections, subjects for contemplation. And now I'm going to read those to you. I am subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging. This is the first fact that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. I am subject to illness, have not gone beyond illness. Now, at this point, again, it's stated this is the second fact that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. In the suttas, there's a bit of repetition, which makes sense because this was an oral tradition. The suttas were memorized by the monks after Buddha left us for Nibbana, and not written down until later. And so we learn and remember through repetition. So after each of these recollections, there is the reminder, like this is the first fact, this is the second fact, this is the third fact, and then the phrase that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. So I'm not going to continue to always read that sentence. I just want to remind you that it's there because it is an important part of the teaching. All right, so I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning of the list because now I've distracted you, right? So I am subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness, have not gone beyond illness. I am subject to death, have not gone beyond death. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. Some versions are a little bit more descriptive of that last I will grow different, separate from all that is dear. Some versions are more descriptive and come right out and are saying to us, I'm going to change and I'm going to lose and become separated from everything that is dear to me. And again, that's not meant to be upsetting. That's meant to be a reminder. Impermanence comes, and as part of impermanence, we experience the changes through aging, through illness, through death. Okay, so back. So I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. And we have this very important reminder of karma. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. That's a very important reminder of karma. Okay, so I think you see the power of these reflections because look what's really being incorporated here, if I can say it that way. We've got the understanding of impermanence. We have the understanding of some of the causes of suffering. So we have the truth of suffering because we cling to wanting to be youthful. We may cling to or have aversion to not wanting to become ill. We don't want to be separated from what is dear to us, whether it's our ability to run around and run up and down the stairs and not have knee problems or back problems, or whether it's not wanting to see people around us change and leave. It could be material possessions, our appearances. And then again, as part of the recollection, there's that reminder of karma. What happens to me in this lifetime and other lifetimes comes from my actions. My past actions and my current actions shape my experience. So I'm going to just run down the list again. I am subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging. I am subject to illness, have not gone beyond illness. I am subject to death, have not gone beyond death. I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. I am the owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator. Whatever I do, for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. These are the 5 facts that one should reflect on often, whether one is a woman or a man, lay or ordained. And so those of you who read the suttas know what to expect next, which is a little bit more of an elaboration, an answering of questions, so that if you were there at the time sitting, listening to the Buddha, you might think things like, well, why? Why should I reflect on any of these things? Why should I reflect on each of these things? And so continuing on is the answer to your question. Now, based on what line of reasoning should I reflect that I am subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging? There are beings who are intoxicated with a youth's intoxication with youth. Okay, that's a funny repetitive sentence, right? But think about so many of us. Of course, this may depend on where you live and how you have been raised, because one of the lovely experience I'm having with all of you is that I have a really nice international audience. So we have different experiences. I'm sitting here in Southern California in the midst of youth culture, be pretty culture, have things fixed on your face and other parts of your body culture. So this is really resonant, right? Because of that intoxication with youth, they conduct themselves in a bad way in body, in speech, and in mind. But when they often reflect on that fact that youth's intoxication with youth will either be entirely abandoned or grow weaker, they learn the truth of what is important. Now, based on what line of reasoning should one often reflect that I am subject to illness, have not gone beyond illness? There are beings who are intoxicated with a healthy person's intoxication with health. So see, there's that repetitive way of speaking again, using the same kind of phrasing, but going subject by subject. And again, that helps with an oral tradition. It also helps us learn and memorize, right? So there are beings who are intoxicated with a typical healthy person's intoxication with health. Because of that intoxication with health, they conduct themselves in a bad way in body, in speech, and in mind. But when they reflect on the fact that healthy person's intoxication with health will either be entirely abandoned or grow weaker, then we let go of that hanging on to that wanting to be healthy all the time. Okay, this doesn't mean that you don't take care of yourself. It doesn't mean that you don't nourish your body and your mind and your spirit, and that you don't, take your medicine and go and see a doctor. But it does mean that we take the practical, reasonable measures to take good care of, I'll say, our shell, what's carrying us around, but that we don't obsess and we don't become distraught and upset when we do become ill. And I will tell you that this is something I have often struggled with. Am I getting better? I hope so. I can just tell you there's a time in my life where if I felt myself becoming ill, I thought I could bargain with my body, right? So like if I felt like I was coming down with a cold, that I would be like, okay, I'll clear the rest of the afternoon and the evening and I can sit and I can have this cold, but then tomorrow I better feel okay again. Truly, in my head, that was a conversation I was having with myself as if I could bargain with my body and bargain with a cold virus to say, okay, I'm giving you this time, but tomorrow I better feel better again. And I think we all know at this point that when you first come down with the cold, the first day is not the most difficult day. Perhaps it is the second and third day, but I wanted to have this bargain. No, because I was having this intoxication with health. The cold will do what the cold will do. And my job, if you will, is to respond and to take care of myself in the best way possible. And also, by the way, try not to infect other people with my cold germs, right? Back to the sutta. Now, based on what line of reasoning should one often reflect that I am subject to death, have not gone beyond death? There are beings who are intoxicated with a typical living person's intoxication with life. Because of that intoxication with life, they conduct themselves in a bad way, in body, in speech, and in mind. But when they often reflect on that fact, the living person's intoxication with life will either be entirely abandoned or grow weaker. And each of these questions and answers are ending with that sentence, will be entirely abandoned or grow weaker. So the youth's intoxication with youth, the healthy person's intoxication with health, the living person's intoxication with life. So when we contemplate on the fact that we are subject to aging, to illness, to death, in a sense, we will learn to stop clinging to those things, because contemplating them and reminding ourselves regularly, this is what it is meant to be a human being, is that you are going to have aging, illness, and death. Remember when the Buddha left home and he snuck out, and what are some of the things he encountered? Aging, illness, death. And then, the fourth thing being seeing somebody looking for enlightenment, seeing somebody living the holy life, right? Right. So these reflections help us become at one with, become comfortable with these facts. Because when you repeat them to yourself every day or out loud, if you chant them, and maybe you chant them with your meditation group, you are planting the seed to know these are things that are going to happen. I should expect these things to happen. And so, back to the sutta. Now, based on what line of reasoning should one often reflect that I will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me? There are beings who feel desire and passion for the things they find dear and appealing. Because of that passion, they conduct themselves in a bad way, in body, in speech, and in mind. Do we, as human beings, ever behave in a less than desirable way in order to hang on to things or to hang on to people, to avoid the ending of relationships? I think we do. Now, a disciple of the Noble Ones considers this: I'm not the only one subject to aging who has not gone beyond aging. To the extent that there are beings, past and future, passing away and re-arising, all beings are subject to aging, have not gone beyond aging. When he or she often reflects on this, the factors of the path take birth. He or she sticks with that path, develops it, cultivates it. And as he or she sticks with that path, develops it, and cultivates it, the fetters are abandoned, the obsessions destroyed. Further, a disciple of the Noble Ones considers this: I'm not the only one subject to illness who has not gone beyond illness. I'm not the only one subject to death who has not gone beyond death. I'm not the only one who will grow different, separate from all that is dear and appealing to me. A disciple of the Noble Ones consider this: I am not the only one who is owner of my actions, heir to my actions, born of my actions, related through my actions, and have my actions as my arbitrator, who, whatever I do for good or for evil, to that will I fall heir. To that extent there are beings, past and future, passing away and re-arising. All beings are the owner of their actions, heir to their actions, born of their actions, related through their actions. I'll stop there. You know the rest of it. When he or she often reflects on this, the path will take birth. And if he or she sticks with that path, develops it, and cultivates it, as he or she sticks with that path, develops it, and cultivates it. The fetters are abandoned, the obsessions destroyed. So this is not just about me. It's not all about me. It's not just like these 5 recollections are for me. I'm not the only one who is subject to aging and illness and death and being separated from the things I love and inheriting my own karma. We're all bumping around out here in the world, and we are all subject to the 5 recollections. And that reminder helps us, or can help us, navigate our experiences with others. And to frame that, to bring that back to some of the things I learned, and hopefully we've learned now together, from discussions with our 12 Wise teachers in this first season of the Death Dhamma podcast. Some common themes. First of all, this is not easy for any of us. And going through the experience of seeing death, losing someone you love, going through your own experiences with illness and your experience with grief can open up your heart. As Diane Wilde put it, it can really just crack open your heart so that you can be more compassionate to others. Now, the Upajjhatthana Sutta ends with this passage, which builds upon our reminder that it's not just me as an individual, that this is about us. Listen, subject to birth, subject to aging, subject to death. Run-of-the-mill people are repelled by those who suffer from that to which they are subject. And if I were to be repelled by being subject to these things, it would not be fitting for me living as they do. As I maintained this attitude, knowing the Dhamma without paraphernalia, I overcame all intoxication with health, youth, and life as one who sees renunciation as rest. For me, energy arose. Unbinding was clearly seen. There's now no way I could partake of sensual pleasures. Having followed the holy life, I will not return. That's the Buddha closing this discussion, if you will, in this sutta for this moment. Not closing the discussion forever, because as you probably know, with as many times as he spoke, many of his lessons are repeated in different passages. And you and I, some of us, are not part of the holy life. Some of us are, because I do have some monastics who are part of the podcast, for which I am very grateful. And then many of us who are not monastics, maybe we're not going to renounce and join the holy life, but we can still work to not be repelled by those who suffer. And this ties back to that statement by Diane about, cracking your heart wide open and being compassionate because you see that the experience you're having is being held by others. And that is the way in which we can be helpful to one another. And I think you know that one of my wishes for us together as part of a community is that we address our own challenges around life, death, and impermanence to help us when we have the time in our life to grieve, and ultimately to take our learnings and our strength and be able to help others on their journey as well. This has been the Death Dhamma podcast with Margaret Maloney. Thank you for being here. Your reviews and comments are greatly appreciated. And please come find me on margaretmaloney.com, MargaretMeloni. And don't forget to check out Carpooling with Death, How Living with Death Will Make You Stronger, Wiser, and Fearless, available in all your favorite formats over on Amazon. And most importantly, may you be well, may you be happy, may you be safe, at ease, and free from suffering. Bye for now.